So I'll say that, for most black people, they don't have a lineage. There so many black people don't even know who their father is. Just the reality of the experience here in America. No, they made it harder for me because I was Hebrew. I think they were worried about two things. One, are you going to be able to fit in? You got to be able to fit in with the Jews, you know? You got to
So this group in Indianapolis is openly anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
Do you think their views on the Jewish community will change given this event?
Not anytime soon.
So, guys, welcome to Muzzle Tough. We're two guys. We don't know what we're talking about today.
Never.
We are talking about current events, Black Hebrew Israelites, and much, much more.
Hmm.
Like I said, we don't know what we're talking about. We have a very special guest today who happens to know what they're talking about. Everyone,
Yes.
please, big round of applause, sitting alone at home. Danny Vasiana, everybody. All right. I guess we'll jump into the current events thing real quick.
Well, first I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay. So, Danny, who are you?
All right, so my name is Danny Vacciana, and I am a convert to Judaism and
Welcome.
a former Hebrew Israelite. And I would say, I guess I'm still a Hebrew Israelite, right? I'm of Israel. I'm of
What
Abraham, that's Hebrew, Israelite, Israel, Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov. So you could say I'm still a Hebrew Israelite.
Yeah.
what is a Hebrew Israelite?
So Hebrew Israelite is a person who believes that they're connected to the Avos and that they're literally a descendant of the Avos, but they don't accept Judaism for one reason or another. They reject what we know as Judaism. At
So
least
they
that's how I would define it. And they're not necessarily black. They It's common now to be known as a black, Hispanic, or Native American. That's the new thing you hear now, which I
hmm,
didn't hear when I was a kid, but now that's what everyone's saying. Black, Hispanic, or Native American.
they're widening the demographic.
Are
That's good.
that claim is that those three groups are the descendants of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov?
That's right.
And just
Not,
for the
not a
viewers, so
horrible
you said
claim.
you said the Avos. What is that?
Meaning Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Abraham of the
Like,
Bible, Isaac of the Bible, and Jacob of the Bible.
okay, so like Abrahamic forefathers kind of thing.
The four forefathers, because Abraham, of course, he had Ishmael, and he's not considered of the same lineage because he kind of split off, and the Arabs claim descent from him, Muslims claim descent from him, and then from Isaac you had Esav, uh, Esau, I think is called in English, right?
Hmm.
Mhm.
And he kind of had his own descent, right? So
Right.
those three, through those line of those three, right? I guess that's what we would consider the biblical chain of transmission, right?
Okay.
Right.
I have some previous experience with the Hebrew Israelites, and the information that they gave me was that us Ashkenazi Jews, the white Jews, are the fake Jews, and that something happened in history either 1,000 years ago or a couple hundred years ago where there was a mass conversion of whites to this predominantly black religion. Do you know anything about that? Or
Yeah, there's many books written on the subject. The earliest books, of course, not surprisingly, were written by the white identity movement, the Christian identity movement, which was they had this idea way before Hebrew Israelites that they're the actual real descendants of the biblical Israelites. If you ever heard of the Christian identity movement, and I said white identity movement because most of them, almost all of them, are also basically white supremacists, and they
Hmm.
believe that Jews are not really the Jews; they're the real Jews. It's the same idea.
right, right, right.
Everyone
They're
wants to be us. You know what I
they're,
mean?
they're the rechosen people.
That's what I say about black people. Everybody want to be us, but nobody want to be us.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Want to copy certain things, but they don't want the whole struggle. Same thing with Jews. I see a lot of parallels between blacks and Jews, especially in the
yeah.
early civil rights movement. NAACP was established by blacks and Jews together, on and on and on.
It's my
Wow.
favorite my
Dude,
favorite
I'm learning
rap
a lot
group.
here. But I don't know. That was
NWA,
a
NAACP. Come on,
a little bit of
that was a stretch. That
the
was a stretch.
that's a zinger. It's a kind of a zinger. It's on its way to be a zinger.
Guys, we're keeping all of the bad jokes in. We don't edit it out. And by
By
the
the way,
way,
also,
if you
isn't
liked that
isn't
show, Go ahead,
I was just gonna
Ben.
say,
Go ahead, Ben.
isn't so we have a list of words that are
Oh,
English, but they sound like Jewish words, and zinger, I feel like, is
Zinger.
going in the list.
Zinger definitely goes on the list. Yeah.
It probably is. It's probably Yiddish. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Yiddish. You know.
Ben, you're gonna Google that for us. I I'm gonna share the screen real quick because when I spent some time with the Hebrew Israelites in San Diego, they had a sign that illuminated some of this belief about the different tribes. So I don't know if everyone can see this.
Oh yeah, the famous 12 tribe chart.
Yeah, so we have Judah are the African Americans, Levi are the Haitians, Simeon are the Dominicans, Ephraim are the, oh gosh, what does that say?
Central
Central
Americans.
Americans, Manasseh are the Cubans. Is there any validity that you know of to that claim, or is that just conjecture?
So the short story of this 12 tribes chart, if you ever heard of Abba Bivens, just remember that name, Abba Bivens. Abba
Okay.
Bivens. And you can Google him. There's a lot of information on the internet. And basically, he was the one who established this stream of Hebrew Israelites known as One West. One West was an address in Harlem of the original first Hebrew Israelite One West. This particular doctrine, whites are fake Jews. I'm sorry, all Jews are white. First of all, there's no such thing as Sephardi Jews. If you bring it up, they just dismiss it. There's no such thing as Tamani Jews, right? All Jews are white. Everyone's white, and you're from Asav, and you're not Jewish. You're Amalek. All
Yeah, from Asav,
all
that
that.
we're from
Yeah,
Asav. Oh,
yeah, you're
yeah.
from Asav.
I do love
And
soup.
that whole doctrine is right from Abba Bivens. And basically, Abba Bivens, he said this himself. He actually was killed by Muslims, believe it or not, in a street fight. But anyway, his whole thing was that I got to get people in the door, and he would say this publicly. He would say a lot of things that sounded inflammatory to get people in the door,
Huh.
but he didn't really believe these things. The difference is his followers, at least they seem to really believe these things.
He was like a shock jock for religion.
Is
For sure.
there
Ooh,
Absolutely.
I like that. I mean, I
is
don't like that, but I kind of like that's interesting.
is there a this is going to be sort of an out there question for the viewers, but I'll try and translate it as good as possible. But is there a common Masorah for all of the different Black Hebrew Israelite groups in America?
So there's someone I really like. You should check out. He's a Christian apologist,
What does
meaning a
that
person.
mean?
So Christian apologist is basically what we would call a kiruv rabbi. A kiruv rabbi, right? They go to a college campus. They go to somewhere where there's impressionable minds, right? They're going to go to people that are open-minded. So that's usually young people, people who still have some idea that they don't know everything.
Mm.
And basically, what he does is he goes out on the street, and he has a big following. His name is Vocab Balone. Vocab Balone. That's his nickname. Anyway, his whole thing. I would say half his ministry is devoted to Hebrew Israelites, especially One West Hebrew Israelites. And he knows a ton about it. He knows. I didn't grow up One West. I grew up in. If you ever heard of Dimona. So in
So
Dimona, there's a group of Black Hebrews who left Chicago in the '60s, and they're not One West. They're their own animal, for lack of a better term. They're their own
Like their
thing,
own sect.
their own sect, and
Mm.
they was led by the late Rabbi Ben Ami, who they consider the Messiah, and they went to Dimona, and they have a village there. They still have a village there. There might be 5,000. And then they set up satellites all around the world. And I grew up in one of those satellites in St. Louis. So I didn't grow
Mm.
up in Dimona, but I've been there. I went there when I was 15, and I spent time there. And I know a lot of people who are still in this group, and even in Dimona, still live there.
And
So
this is
what
a
was the question? I lost my train of thought.
I guess
this
the
is good.
question is, what is if I were to ask? So the group I spent time with was called the Sakari in San
Yeah.
Diego. Um, Honestly, I had a very copacetic time with them, and I'll just say this: the only time, because on YouTube they only post videos of the group screaming, getting into altercations. That's the stuff that gets out because that's what people share. But I'll say the conversation with me was super copacetic, very nice. I told them that I'm Jewish, and they said, "Well, that's what you think," and and then we kept on talking. But it wasn't until two from modern Orthodox Jews walked by where, and I hate to admit this, but it was the frum Jews that started to cast aspersions as they walked by. It was on Shabbos, and I'm not Shomer Shabbos, but they were. And the Sakari, and I'll paint a picture. They had tzitzis, but it was like keychains on their belt loops. And so it seemed to me that they were living kind of like Tzedukim, or Sadducees, I think would be the English term. People who have like the literal text of the law, but not the spirit of it. And it seems to be that they're trying as hard they can with their understanding of the Tanakh as they have it, because they're also reading it in English. Did you grow up reading Hebrew?
So obviously the group in Dimona, they grew up as Israelis.
Right.
So they speak Hebrew fluently. But even they, to my knowledge, they still use the King James Bible. I could be wrong, but to my knowledge, they still use the King James Bible because the people that they're reaching out to are Black Americans for the most part. The people they're doing outreach to, the people they're trying to convince, are Black Americans. And Black Americans, they're Christians. They're traditionally Christians. And even if they aren't Christians, they have that culture, right? So the Bible, it's the Bible, and it's the King James Bible, right? So did I grow up? We try to learn Hebrew. I still try to learn Hebrew. It's a challenge. Everyone, was trying to learn Tanakh or learn some Mishnah, Gemara, especially Gemara. It's very challenging. So yes and no. Yes, on a basic level.
Okay. And they're trying to, now when they say convert, they're not really trying to convert. They're trying to do kiruv.
Right.
Right. They're trying to do outreach to people who they believe are already Jewish or Israelites.
100%. 100%. And that's both these groups. That's, Dimona, the official name was African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. That's a mouthful. But just Black Hebrews of Dimona or something, if you Google it, Black Hebrews Dimona or Dimona Hebrews. They're pretty much the only ones that are in Israel, that live in Israel. They have they're well respected by the Israeli government. They have a relationship with the Israeli government.
Well, they're Israelis at this point.
They're Israelis. I mean, most of them don't have citizenship.
Oh.
Because of the whole issue that it's a Jewish state. And it's very, they're very upset about that. That they feel they should have citizenship. They've been there since the 60s. They're very upset about it. But I see both sides. I see both sides.
I imagine you'd be able to see both sides quite well. You mentioned that you're a convert to Judaism.
That's right.
Was it, and again, this will be sort of, I'll try and translate it on the screen, but was it a standard Geirus, or did you do like a Geir L'chumra?
No, they made it harder for me because I was Hebrew. Because I told them straight up I'm a Hebrew, and I think they made it harder for me because when I came, I already knew how to read Hebrew. I already had gone to shul for a few years. I already knew the basics, but they still, I think they were worried about two things. One, are you going to be able to fit in? You got to be able to fit in with the Jews, You got to be.
Everyone can fit in with the Jews. Listen, I'm telling you right now, everyone can fit in with the Jews. Blanket statement. Blanket statement.
I heard that, but they want to make sure I could fit in with the Jews. And I couldn't, I think they're worried, am I coming with this like revolutionary Black mindset? You know what I mean? Like what you would see Sakari come with. They're worried, am I secretly that way? Even though I'm smiling, I'm being nice. Underneath, I got to get Whitey. Got to get these Whitey Jews. Got to get them. I mean, that's what I think. But, it was for the best because there's a lot of social norms in the Jewish community that are unspoken, that you won't know unless you spend a lot of time around Jews, I think. So for me, it was the best thing, but a lot of unspoken rules.
Do you have any examples of some of these unspoken rules? I'm just curious.
It's just different. Like this is all my opinion. I bet you
Of
if you
course.
get what's his name, the guy Sakari, the guy who's always on the camera speaking. I can't remember his name right now. But anyway, if you talk to him, I'm sure he'll disagree a lot with what I'm saying. He might disagree, but black people have a culture, a certain kind of culture, and it's a lot different from Jewish culture, mainstream Jewish culture. Um, I think Jews are just more reserved. I think they're more restrained emotionally. I think it's just cultural differences. Just put it like that. For instance, in the black community, if someone if you're upset with them, you didn't like something to do, the best thing to do is just go up to them and tell them, "Hey, what's this all about?" Just confront them. Jews are not like that. If you go up and
Right.
do that to a Jew, you're making a big mistake. You're the better thing is to maybe find a third party who can kind of, you know what I mean,
Mm.
kind of help
Yes.
you
Mediate.
approach them. You got
The
they you know
a
like that, or
rabbinical thing. You go to the bait. What is it? The bait din.
based in, or
Yeah.
somebody you both respect that can like, hey, can you talk to them? And everything's very gentle, everything's very calm.
Mhm.
Versus,
Right.
this is my opinion. Blacks are not that way. Blacks are very open, vocal. They'll tell you right away, hey, what's this? Why you do this? Da da da. And they'll yell and scream at each other. And then 5 minutes later, they'll be shaking, giving the hugs, and hey, what's up, man? We're cool. It's just a different culture.
That seems better to me because I can say, speaking personally, I know of a lot of animosity that gets brewed within the Orthodox community because of the inability to directly approach issues. And so I will say, listen, maybe it would be better if people in the Orthodox community were a little more face forward. I'm just saying that.
I mean, if you look at Israel, and I've never lived in Israel. I mean, I've never lived there for more than like, as a student around all other Americans kind of thing. I never lived there as an Israeli. And Israelis are much more like that, right?
Right.
Israelis are much more,
Mm.
they'll tell you exactly what they think of you. So I think it's maybe it's not just Orthodox Jewish, and maybe it's more an American Jewish thing. I think Israeli culture is much more like that.
Yeah. So I'm going to keep going back to the conversation I had with the Sakari, which, by the way, I will link up to the videos that they posted of that conversation because I thought it was a phenomenal conversation and relatively illuminating. Because I believe in a few things. I believe in God. I believe that history repeats itself, and I believe in biblical prophecy. So when they quoted Deuteronomy, you know which one? Slaves on ships to Egypt, and your men
Yeah.
are okay. When they whipped that out, and I had to pull up a Tanakh to see if it was a mistranslation, and it was not. When they pulled that out, I said, "Wow, wow," because Mitzrayim, as you well know, doesn't always mean Egypt. It could just mean slavery, house of bondage, a struggle of some sort. And so when they said that, I said, "Wow, maybe there is some validity." And you could tell me if I'm wrong. I felt in that moment, I said, wow, maybe there's some validity. Maybe some of the slaves on those ships were Jewish. It's very possible. Israel, the time of the expulsion, some of them could have gone to North Africa while the other ones went to Europe. And a part of me felt like there was a little bit of validity in that claim. And it could be because of my bias of wanting to believe in the Torah. What is the deal with the ships in Deuteronomy? Because we
You know,
walked into Egypt. We weren't brought on ships. However, you know what I'm saying?
uh-huh. So this is a whole thing. It's funny because there's the Egyptologists, surprisingly. You get there's like three sectors of black people that I experienced all three of these growing up. You got the traditional Christian culture black people. They grew up in the church, or at least their grandparents were in the church, or their parents were in the church. Maybe they rejected. Then you got the Egyptologists, which is a whole sector of people that feel like black people, they ruled Egypt and we're from that and da da da. It's like the opposite side, right? Egypt. And then you have people say, no, we're actually the Hebrews, right? And this all comes back to the Bible, right? Why Egypt? I feel like it's because of the Egypt plays a big part of play in the Bible. That's my opinion. But anyway, they argue against each other all the time. If you watch the Hebrew channels, there's tons of debates between them where you have, between these different groups. So about the whole thing with ships, there's actually a few debates I could send you maybe where it's Egyptologists arguing against their use of this verse.
Interesting.
Because of course Egyptologists don't want to validate, they have the Book of the Dead or whatever. They want to invalidate the Bible, at least the interpretation of the Bible, and it goes back and forth.
Also, the timeline of slavery in Egypt is very similar. So I'll say the timeline and the claims of slavery in America are similar to the timelines and claims of slavery in Egypt. How long was slavery in Egypt?
Right.
200
It's
years.
like
They say it felt like 400. And then slavery in the United States, obviously 1776, but then the 1619 project came out to double the time period. Slaves are 400 years. And I think that also in terms of the war today, Avram Avinu went to Eretz Yisrael in 1948, our year, 1948. And there was a big uprising and a war in 2023, our year being the year, now it's 5778. 218 years left, baby. Let's go. Those who know. And I think the parallels are extremely convincing. And if I wasn't Jewish, if I was just a goy walking down the street and someone said, look at the Bible, look at these verses, it's pretty clear that at least some of them could have been Jews. Some of them are right. Maybe this. And I'll also say that we gain nothing from invalidating them.
No, I agree. I totally agree with you.
I personally think the Ashkenazi Jewish community should probably make a concerted effort, especially with the events that happened this past week in Indianapolis, which we'll get to in a minute. I think there should be a concerted effort for unity, achdus, solidarity with the Black Hebrew Israelite communities all over the world, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. I agree with you.
Do you have... Well, let's talk about what happened in Indianapolis. We won't mention her name or anything like this, but a woman drove into an Israelite school in Indianapolis because they use similar symbology that Jewish schools use, a Star of David, and so on and so forth. And it was premeditated. She backed into the school trying to kill Jews. As a Jewish Israelite, straight up, what do you think?
I mean, so this whole thing was a big controversy in the especially UPK. UPK is one of the biggest. They claim descent from the original One West. They split off into a lot of different groups. It's called UPK, Universal School of Practical Knowledge. Anyway, there was a school that was hit, and they used the Star of David in their iconography. And basically, yeah, she ran the car into what she thought was a Jewish kids school, because it said the school of, whatever, Israelite school. And of course, it was one of these, it was one of the most very anti-Semitic groups that say that, well, they all are to some extent, but this one, they say basically that Jews are Amalek. They say that Jews are actually Amalek. And
doing the old Uno reverse card.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
That's so I didn't get that. See, I didn't get that vibe from the group in San Diego that I spoke with.
Sakari's a little different. Sakari's a little different because, especially like UBK, they strongly disagree with intermarriage, meaning marriage to someone who isn't Black or Hispanic. Versus Sakari, they don't agree with that. They say it's by the father. So I believe like a few of them openly have white wives, white girlfriends, and it's okay. Good, versus other groups that wouldn't be okay. So
this group in Indianapolis is openly anti-Semitic. Do you think their views on the Jewish community will change given this event?
Not anytime soon. No.
Really, you don't think they'll develop some sort of sympathy saying, hey, these people, we're getting targeted not because we look like them, but our buildings do?
No. I've been talking to a bunch of them about this exact incident. I'm saying, like, you guys have been targeted. I could show you privately, especially if we're in person. I would show you privately. But I've been saying, like, look, you guys are getting targeted just because have some Star David. You're gonna get lumped in with the same. You're gonna experience the same anti-Semitism we are. There's a bunch of incidents. I don't know if you heard. There was an incident in Chicago. It was on Shabbos, so I missed it. But I've been filming the protests. You can see it on my channel at DMV Films, YouTube at DMV Films.
We'll tag you in the comments. Yeah, we'll
at
link
DMV
you.
Films. But yeah, I filmed one of these protests. I wanted to see what they were talking about. And it was one of the same organization, one of their other later protests. There was a Black Hebrew group, two camps, Watchmen for Israel and Anointed Saints of Israel, I believe is the name. Anyway, there's endless amount of these splinter Hebrew groups, endless amounts, hundreds of thousands of groups. Anyway, they got into an altercation where they're throwing firecrackers back and forth, throwing bottles of water back and forth, hitting each other with flagpoles. It was a violent incident. One of them had to go to the hospital. One of the Hebrews had to go to the hospital. It was a very violent incident. Chicago police are amazing. I don't know how more people weren't hurt if you see the video. And yeah, they basically, they're at each other's neck. They don't like each other at all. And there's another incident in Britain. You can find it on UBK's UK channel. They have a UPK. That's a lot of letters.
UPK UK.
UBK UK. But they have an incident where these Palestinian protesters came, knocked over their signs, totally disrupted. They're out on the street preaching with the microphone.
Is the average Israelite group that's out there on the street preaching, first of all, why do they preach on the street in the manner that they do?
Because Alba Bivens did it.
Okay, so it's heritage.
Remember Alba Bivens? He was the one who founded One West, and all these other groups imitate him. I know you heard of IUIC.
Maybe
IUIC. You remember the guys in the purple shirts? Remember when they had it? Yeah.
It's purple with the gold.
We the real Jews.
Yeah.
Something like that. Remember those people marching? All those thousands of people march. They're probably the largest and most organized IUIC because the commander is he's a former police detective. The leader of his name is Brother Nathaniel. I think that's his name. I hope that's his name. Brother Nathaniel. You can look him up. But they're the largest, most organized group, and they form themselves like a paramilitary, and they have huge numbers. They have more numbers than anyone else. But anyway, that's a One West group. Sakari is sort of a One West group. They're basically a One West group, but all these groups kind of did their own thing, how they want to change here, change there, but they all kind of share a similar MO. And the MO is they all hate Jews. They all say Jews stole their identity. They all say that Black people and sometimes Hispanics and Native Americans are the real Jews. And they all believe in Christ. They all believe in Jesus, which is interesting.
But
all of them believe in Christ, are basically believe in Christ, but they believe Christ is this warrior king who's going to come back and enslave all the non-Black Hispanics and Native Americans into slavery. And each person is going to have a slave, multiple slaves.
So that's what the Jews believe about Mashiach. That's what I was told in Kita Bays.
I think there's a difference between slave and servant, and there's no idea from a Jewish perspective. I watched like half of I want to finish watching it, the one that you said, the Nutra Karta.
Oh, the Nutra Karta.
I had questions for you, Danny, about that also. So if we have time, I'm curious to get some opinions.
We have
I'm not an expert.
8 minutes.
I'm not an expert. I'm just saying what I've read and what I've seen. That's it. I'm not a rabbi.
I'm the antithesis of an expert.
I happen to be an expert. So
there we go. Thank
1
God
out of
someone's
3
an
ain't
expert.
bad. We have 8 minutes left. Ben, you had a question you wanted to ask?
I got a couple questions, although Danny, you'll have to forgive me because as we've established previously, I know nothing about anything at all, even less. But 2 questions I have is, one, what are your thoughts on the Neturei Karta, which is just for our viewers who don't know. Mayor, explain what the Neturei Karta is really quick, or Danny, anyone?
I would call them Hasidic Jews who take the most extreme position on how Golos will end, right? Everyone agrees that Mashiach's going to come and Golos will end. The question is, how gradual is that process? Will Mashiach just show up and Gullus ends, or can we make some steps to help it before Mashiach comes, right? Can we do
And they
some
think there are steps.
Would you agree with that assessment?
I would agree with that. I think, yeah, they believe that Mashiach, the Messiah, has no chance of coming while the Jews are actively defying the command of Gullus. The fact that we're in Gullus is God's will because of Sinas Chinam, the destroyer of the Second Temple, so on and so forth. And they think that the Mashiach can only come while we're in Gullus. And so the attempt to make a state of Israel before the Mashiach does is tantamount to like heresy to them. Did you grow up keeping Shabbos?
Yeah, we kept it in a very extreme way, though. I would say keeping Shabbos Jewish is much better, much better. We didn't have heat in the house. We only allowed to have heat in case of to save a life. So like an older person or a baby. We fasted all Shabbos.
Whoa.
Yeah.
No kugel? Not even an ounce of kugel?
No
What about
food.
Sholins?
You could have for children. You could feed children. It's a very unpleasant way. I mean, actually, it was kind of restful at the time, but compared to now, obviously Shabbos is much more pleasant.
Well, eating is a joy. We love eating.
Absolutely.
If you, for whatever reason, you found yourself walking down the street and a group of Hebrew Israelites were out preaching, would you approach them and would you say, would you ask them if you fit in, if you're Jewish as well as an Israelite? How would they identify you is, I guess, my question.
So this is my understanding, and I'm sure people could disagree. I wouldn't be surprised if this appears on some Hebrew Israelite channel where they're watching the video, pausing it, talking over it, let it play. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And what I would say is that, I'll say this, in my opinion, all the Hebrew Israelites groups, for the most part, and I'm not including Rabbi Funyeh, which is Obama's cousin. I don't know if you ever heard of Rabbi Funyeh.
I went to a shul. I wanted to bring up Rabbi Funyeh, but they strike me as conservative.
Yeah, I'm not talking about any of the congregations. There's a lot of congregations. There's one, I think there's Bethel in New York. I haven't really been to the ones in New York. I've interacted with the ones here in Chicago. There's only really one big one, Rabbi Funyeh. That's a totally different animal. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the street preachers. Mm-hmm. Talking about the one Westers. They're basically, in my opinion, the race cults. They worship the black race. They worship the blood of the black race as a holy sacrament. Just like you have the blood of Jesus, and Catholics, I don't want to talk for Catholics, but they talk, this is the blood of Jesus, this is the flesh of Jesus, and you shall be sanctified through it. Sort of like that, but black blood. By being black, you are the only real people that this Bible's talking about. And the only way that the whole earth can find salvation is take that back. The only people who will find salvation is people who have this blood. If you're not of this blood, your destiny is to be a slave. And that's your fate. So it's basically it's like a race thing. So if I talk to them, they'll say, yeah, why aren't you with us though? You should be with us. If I'm lucky, they'll call me Uncle Tom, something like that. But I had none of them say, you're not allowed. We don't want you. They always say, come with us. You should be with us. Why are you with those Jews? They say you're serving your white Jewish rabbi. They say all this kind of stuff. Like, why are you serving them? They make it like this weird thing that's obviously not true.
Is there? Yeah, that's interesting.
That's heavy.
So we got about 2 minutes left. Folks, if you made it this far in the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, definitely leave a comment. We love the comments.
We love them.
And
even the hurtful ones.
My father wanted, I know you know my father, and he wanted me to ask you specifically, before you converted to Judaism, as we know it now, what was your Masorah, like your family Masorah, your lineage? Did it go back to Avram? Did it go back? And how was that taught to you? That's what my father wanted me to ask.
So I'll say that, for most black people, they don't have a lineage. Many black people don't even know who their father is. Just the reality of the experience here in America. I didn't meet my father till I was 20 years old, 21 years old.
Wow.
It's just the broken families. I'm not speaking for everyone. Everyone's different. Many people grew up with a father in their home. I'm not speaking for everyone, but I'm saying for many people, that's their story. So a literal lineage, very few Black people can pull that out. So it's more the idea that all of us are somehow a part of this Masorah. We're all Black people are somehow tied to this idea. And if you talk, so you ever heard of Rav Avraham?
Rav Avraham Avinu.
Yeah. There's a Rav Avraham. I can't Rav Ben Avraham. I can't remember his first name right now. But he's a Ger Tzedek who also is a rabbi. He became a rabbi in Jerusalem. And he actually does a lot of outreach with Hebrews, and I can give you the link to put in the description. But anyway, long story short, he has a whole idea. You have the Igbo. He had Igbo Jews who are claiming Judaism. If you ever looked at that, maybe we can have a part 2. But anyway,
I think we definitely
we might
should.
have to. We might have to. Yeah.
It's about to cut off. In fact, you know what? We'll plug part 2 right now, guys. Like and subscribe if you want a part 2. Danny,
and we know you do.
Yeah, Danny, thank you so much for joining us. I hope people watching this have been illuminated in some sense. This episode is dedicated to Reb Noach Weinberg, who wrote this book. Absolutely phenomenal. What the Angel Taught You, 7 Keys to Fulfillment. Absolutely phenomenal book. May you rest in peace, Rabbi Noach Weinberg. Boom, we're doing dedications now. That's a thing.
That's nice.
It should be.
Yeah, and thank you, Danny. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Take care.
All right.
Be safe.
All right.
Shkoyach. I'm just going to, you can hang up if you want. I just let it roll out till it cuts off naturally. It usually does that when I'm in the middle of a sentence.